What's the most controversial thing that's happened while I've been gone?
Ooh,
In your
how long have you
worlds?
been gone?
Well,
Guatemala.
from podcasts forever. I think it's
It feels like
2022
forever.
was the last podcast I was on.
Yeah, it's probably right. It's probably around that.
Actually, the fun part has been listening to the podcast uh, when you're not on it, which of course I've done before, but like I think 3 weeks in a row, there's no Kevin, and so like you have your own things that are carrying through that I have nothing to do with. It's been nice.
It's been nice. Like the show keeps going on. Like this is a weird feeling. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I think it's again, but yeah, just being a consumer of content is nice.
yeah,
Not having to think about what it is we're going to talk about and leading it along. It's been great.
yeah. True. Yeah, a little
But really,
break.
nothing broke while I was gone. Nothing.
I don't. I don't think so. We talked about how I pronounce crayon incorrectly, apparently,
Yes, yes.
and Beth says beagle.
And everyone needs $5,000 cameras to do their videos better. I think
Apparently,
that was right.
true and not true. I mean, if you already have true and not true. If you are selling, I should say, if you are selling this much homes and you're creating this much content, you should probably have some quality equipment if
Yeah,
you're
I go
going to
back
do it.
to
But still,
video is important, but the audio quality, like
oh, for sure.
the number of pieces of content we still see where it's just a sales rep 20 feet away from the camera trying to tour or something and you can barely hear what they're saying. That's got to end.
I'm still a fan of this one right here. It's like the DJI
Mm-hmm.
little one. So this is a Hollyland. It's a made up Chinese name. Like what the heck? But
Yeah, I've seen reviews for those. It's pretty good.
It just works
Mhm.
in iPhone 2 or mobile compatible.
Yeah.
You don't have to click any buttons. The only thing I don't like is it puts it in mono, which is really bizarre. Like left and right, depending on who's wearing it.
Right.
Super weird. Oh well.
All I know is that I was slacking you, Kevin, and you were out of the country. And I didn't
Oh, yeah.
realize it. I was like slacking you about a meeting coming up, and then you weren't on the meeting. And I was like, oh,
This was
that's because
definitely
he's
the
not in
first-
the United States.
Yeah,
Doing something.
Beth Russell was doing the same. And she was
I
like,
knew
"Can you
somehow."
something?" I was like, I can definitely get it to you in like 4 hours, but we're like leaving a volcano. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I
I
don't need
know
it."
you were responding to me, and then I didn't realize till later.
Internet connection in the third world has improved greatly over the last 7 years.
So if
I
you were
love-
like,
I'm sure.
why is she sending me this? That's why I forgot.
Yeah, it's okay. It's good.
It's on the calendar.
My goal is to become less important every day. All right, let's get started.
Let's go.
Welcome to episode 313. I'm Kevin Oakley, and with me today is Julie Jarnigan and Andrew Peak. Feels good to be back.
Welcome back.
Good to have you back. 313.
Story-
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Story time.
Are we superstitious about 13? I'm not. So
Oh,
It could be.
I guess not, because we have
maybe
it.
I jinxed it already.
Let's go to
I
episode 400.
This could be our last podcast ever.
It could be. You know.
Never know.
It could be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start story time, which I never do, just because I want to say something that will make people mad at me to get my energy up a little bit. Because
fun,
I've been
though,
out,
sometimes.
and then we've got Thanksgiving. It's been 5-6 call days, and if anyone who's on Zoom a lot, you just know like 3 hours of Zoom a day is the ideal amount of Zoom time for any human being.
Yeah.
And then of course we record the podcast on Zoom. And so here we go. Someone asked me the other day, hey, because we made the market proof marketing GPT where we uploaded data from the podcast files and you can ask it any questions. You do have to apparently be a Chat GPT plus subscriber in order to use the thing. But I was talking about it with one of our builders and he was like, well, how do you feel about chatbots? Any different feelings or changed feelings on the concept? And because the amount of work I'd just been doing with ChatGPT, I said this rather controversial thought, which was, I don't think we've ever had chatbots really on home builder websites. I still don't think we have as of right now. I don't know of anyone who has a chatbot service where you can just ask it a question and it doesn't say, sorry, please give me a zip code or pick a community first, or here's your 5 options of things you can say. That's not chat. That's if then statements pre-programmed based on some data set that you have, but it's not really conversational in the way that ChatGPT is, where I can just say, if ChatGPT was loaded on a builder's site, I could just ask it, what are the top 3 school districts in this part of town? Hey, I'm not from here. I live in Iowa. I'm thinking of moving to Ohio. What are the top 3 school districts in Northwest Columbus? So one, that's the first control. I don't think we've ever had it. And then the second thing is, I don't think most people would want it, because I think the current accepted trade-off is, well, we'll let this non-human interact with our prospects because it can't talk about certain things.
Right.
Meaning, as soon as you give it the ability to have real conversation with your customer, I feel like, again, the sales reps and the online salespeople are going to say, what's going on here? Like, I want to have that conversation. For having real conversations, no, that's where I'm supposed to be involved. I don't want the chatbot telling people, answering the question, give me 3 reasons why I shouldn't pick this community to live in.
Yeah. And I think that like choose your own adventure version of a chatbot that's not a chatbot. I mean, that's what it is. Basically, it's already all rewritten.
It's like interacting with the menu navigation of the website through chat.
Exactly. I think it's treating the consumer like they're too stupid to find it themselves on the website. Like, if your website is halfway decent, they're going to be able to find whatever that already entered information is. So it's almost insulting to the consumer.
The sad part is, I think sometimes they're right, and that consumers have been too stupid, or we've just designed websites too poorly to be able to get them where they want to go. But
yeah, agreed. So I've always felt this way. It's like, why wouldn't some builders want to put real progress photos of homes that are in progress, when in real life you drive to that community and you see what's there? So it's like, to me, I've always felt like you're kind of hiding from the truth, which just seems really bizarre because it's there anyways. It's not like there's this black fence that you cannot see a home in progress. So having like, what is the insulation value of the attic, for instance? Maybe that builder particular goes a little cheap on that end, but they want to have that conversation in person. So like, like going R whatever, it's actually really excessive for Florida. Like, you don't have to do that. That's why we chose this. We could bring the cost down, and you really don't need that over there. The sales agent could sell that, but then you go and chat, you have the chatbot. It's like, oh, we're R2 or whatever, like nothing. We don't use any insulation in the attic, which would be really bizarre. And then you go, oh, well, that's terrible. And you research. And so you get these negative answers, but either way, they're getting the truth and they could come to their own conclusion. Yeah, I don't know if that feels like, if you wouldn't want to do it that way, you're kind of trying to trick the consumer, trick the buyer, which I don't think is.
I just don't think we're ready to let that control. When I say we, the collectively, I don't think the industry is ready to let that kind of control go. So I'm building this ChatGPT for micro-proof marketing. And of course, one of my test questions to figure out if I have enough training data is, does Kevin like pancakes or waffles? And the first time it came back, I screenshotted it and sent it to Will, because it said, hold on, I'll find it here super quick. Okay, I need to text Will more often. Here it is. The answer was, based on the information from the podcast, it seems that Kevin prefers waffles. In one of the episodes, a comment was made about Kevin likely eating waffles, which suggests his preference for them over pancakes. Now, that's obviously stupid, but I was like, dang it. If it said an answer that was incorrect or not the right answer, I think people are going to overreact and be like, no, you can't say that. But if you're using a real chatbot, the potential ways it could go is infinite. So you can't close it off entirely to just be safe. I mean, unless you just wanted to say, sorry, I'm not allowed to answer any of those questions. You're going to have to talk to a human now. But then does that defeat the purpose of using that chatbot?
Getting nerdy for a second. It gave that answer because it needed more data.
No, I gave that answer because some hooligan that we had on the podcast in the training data mentioned, probably sarcastically, but sarcasm doesn't come across in the transcript.
No.
I don't know if it was Will or someone just making note of like, yeah, Kevin's probably eating waffles because we know he loves them. And that's all the data it had. And so that was making the best assumption that it could.
Makes sense. Sarcasm.
Yeah. I don't know. this whole thing, really what chatbots have turned into is just another lead form for the most part. When people say my chatbot's working, their only metric, which again, if you only have one metric, you have no case to make about anything out of context, is, well, we're getting leads from the chatbot. Okay. I'm like, prove to me that they weren't coming in from another source before, or would have come in from another source, or prove to me that they're happy as they're filling out the form saying, can you get me a real person to help me? Yeah. All right.
Fun.
I'll come back maybe with an actual story time, but that's my controversial statement to kick us off. Julie, what do you got?
I was listening to a marketing podcast the other day, and it was, I don't know, Rory Sutherland. He wrote Alchemy. Do y'all know him? He's an
sounds really familiar. Yeah.
It does sound familiar.
Anyway, it kind of went, what he was saying was kind of against conventional wisdom, and I liked it. He said, instead of being the best at one thing, which is almost impossible that you are going to be the best at that one thing, is to find two interconnected things and be really, really good at them. And that's going to make you so much more unique and have a viewpoint nobody else has. And I think that applies both to like a professional career in many ways, but also like branding. Like if you're only like so focused on we're the best at this one thing, if it becomes like a commodity, somebody comes in and is better than you, then you've got nothing. So it's that finding that niche where you can start interlocking skills, interlocking value, to make it more unique. I think the example he gave is like he knew somebody who was a tennis player, but also a behavioral scientist. And then they really had that sport psychology avenue down. So I just thought it was an interesting concept. And there are so many different things it could apply to.
Yeah, especially, right now you've got a lot of people who are thinking about changing jobs or not happy where they are, just a lot of movement in the industry generally. And a lot of people reaching out to me saying, hey, Kevin, kind of gently like, are you hiring? Yes, we are hiring for certain roles. We are definitely hiring a lot of continued growth here, but the other thing is they're like, I'm thinking about starting out on my own or doing consulting around this topic or that topic. And, to your point, you could say, I'm going to try to be the best in the world at one thing, or you layer over, like, I'm going to be the best in the world at this one thing and its intersection with new home construction or new home sales. That's awesome. The challenge is that the markets become crowded. And if 4 people are already doing that, it's just interesting to me. I don't know if they talk about this in the podcast, which is why I'm asking. Like, I think sometimes people have psychological blind spots because they don't perceive that something is already being covered when it is like more than covered. The irony here would be like, hey, I'm thinking of starting a consultancy, helping people understand how to do digital marketing as an example, right? So there's already out there. There's already like a whole bunch of companies in our space who do that, us included. And so the one part of me is like, yeah, I'm always for anyone starting something on their own, because in my life, that risk reward paid off really well. And I encourage people to take the leap. On the other hand, it's like, maybe what you've given me is a better tool to give them better advice is like, what's the extra layer you can put on that makes it different? Because otherwise the only business you're likely to get, at least at the beginning, is the business no one else wants. Because you'll have to be less expensive or, some other differentiator that's not in terms of expertise. It's just a term sheet, like item instead. Anyway, that's interesting. And I don't know which one of his books I've read, but I have read or listened to one of his books for sure.
Yeah. I remember his, the covers of his books.
I just remember his hair. He's got very unique hair. Awesome.
Yeah, I see that hair.
Andrew?
Yeah. So I was on call earlier today and we were talking about Google bids, CPCs, and just understanding the relationship to budgets. And it's hard to explain. And I came up with it on the fly. I'm like, oh, this might actually fit as far as understanding when you increase your budget with Google ads, 50 to 100% of the time. That's a range, right? 50 to 100%. Is it 100% or 50 times? Well, it depends on how much you increase the budget, but more often than not, the cost per click is going to rise, which you're like, what? Does that make sense? Does not make sense. And I'm like, oh, let's just think about it like you're going to the butcher or the meat department at your grocery store. You have $100 to spend. Buy as much meat as you can. You could probably get away with like, all right, $3.99 a pound, $4.99 a pound, depending where you are. Getting like 80-20 ground beef.
You're talking about ounces of meat.
Ounces of meat.
Servings?
$100, and you have.
Quality?
So analogy is with quality. This is just volume. We're talking just volume.
Pure
just
ounces
volume.
of meat.
Pure ounces, like how much weight of beef. Let's do beef because I think that's the most familiar one.
Yeah.
Beef. You'd get the cheap ground beef for $100. Well, now you want to spend $500. We already got all the cheap ones or the lower cost efficiency ones. Then you go from the ground meat to like, ooh, now we need some roasts, like the bigger cuts that are harder to handle, not as popular to buy. Now you're adding up, and then you get to the filet, and then you get to Wagyu. You get all the fancy stuff. So eventually you do have to pay a premium to get everything to spend your budget.
Okay, let me clarify because
Yes.
I think I'm following you. You're
I think
saying
so.
the store is now out of ground beef.
Yeah, we bought all the ground beef.
So it's not that you personally don't want any more ground beef and you want to diversify.
Mm-mm.
It's just that you've bought it all already.
We have $100 a day to spend on Google ads. We got
Right.
$100 in beef. $100 is all the ground meat, all the ground beef, like 80-20, 73, whatever. If you're familiar with that. If you're not, like, you need to go shopping more often and know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But eventually you're out of the lower cost meat and you have to go to the steaks, like the cut meat. And then you get like, I don't know, say like a top sirloin, $10, $12 a pound, but then you have to get filet. Eventually, if you keep going up in budget, you have to buy those. Like there's no choice, but you have to pay more per click. Unless, say you're in a big market and you're bidding on New Homes, Dallas. Well, there's plenty of ground beef for everybody with a given budget. There's a lot more choices.
Or if this is a franchise meat operation.
Yeah.
If your geography is wide enough, you can just go to another store. You haven't bought all their ground beef yet. You can
100%.
buy that.
Yeah, 100%. So it's like shopping.
I think the key element of your analogy, which I do like, is just understanding scarcity. And there's this incorrect belief, especially by non-marketers who believe that scarcity is not a thing. The only scarcity, they're like, well, the only thing that's scarce is your budget, but there has to be an infinite amount of possible lead volume out there if you just spent it correctly. And that's incorrect. And this is in the spring market, you might never feel that scarcity, but it's always there. It's just, you can actually like Black Friday deals, they're going to run out.
Yeah.
And there's not a replacement for it. You have to go buy the thing that's not on sale if you want it now.
And that's why I brought it up because, in the spring, let's go fast forward to March, April, June of 2024. There's going to be a lot more of the quote ground beef clicks available, like the lower cost ones. But right now we're November, December. There's less of those out there. And if we're trying to spend more and more and more, the CPC is probably going to rise for you. I would say. Yeah. So I'm still working on that analogy.
This is also, by the way, a meat store where anyone can walk in and at auction buy the meat that you want.
Yeah.
So as it incrementally goes up, the reason it goes up exponentially in cost is now, okay, all that's left is the Wagyu steaks, and there's 8 people who still need meat.
Julie comes over.
It's not just the price of Wagyu; it's the price of Wagyu in limited supply.
And the person next to you that says, "Hey, I'll pay $1 more." The
person next to you is from Lennar
and you're like,
and has as much money as God to bid, and says, "I'll pay $10,000 a click.
I want everything. Give it all to me." Yeah.
By the way, Lennar is our inside joke now for the rest of the show because of what happened at this year's summit. If you don't know, you don't know, but Lennar will become our happy acres if we just use their name in jest. It's not because we don't like them. It's just because of what happened at the summit. So
I just really hope that on the social media clips, they use y'all's conversation about ground beef with zero context.
Just talk about ground beef. You got beef. It's more. You get the filet.
No, hey, look, we'll throw it on TikTok and we'll go viral among the ground beef crowd because they'll understand.
They're like, what's wrong with this guy? Does he even know what he's talking about?
Okay, I have one more thing because I've been away for so long. Let's pretend we're going to go to TikTok. Let's say that TikTok. As a builder, you have content that you're putting on TikTok, which is essentially a speed tour of the interior of a floor plan. Do you think it is imperative or necessary or even a good idea to have in the first 2 seconds of that video a bold thing of text saying, "Come tour the Stanford floor plan with us"? why am I even asking this question?
I'm like, is this a question or a statement? Rhetorical?
It's a little bit rhetorical, but it's fun to play the game. It's been fun to play the game on our call of why would you put the floor plan name there? It's TikTok. No one needs to know or will have context of what that is. And as small as it feels, it creates this mental friction in the consumer of like, maybe I should just swipe now because I don't know what the Stanford floor plan is. And I must not have full context here. I'm gone. You're gonna leave some people there. Whereas the content has to, and we know this. I'm not saying anything new, but it's not just repackaging the content for the format of different platforms in terms of size or length of allowed content, et cetera. It's also just saying what information is necessary for the desired outcome here. And that same quick walkthrough of the floor plan, we don't need to tell people that it's a kitchen with an overlay. We don't need to tell people it's the Stanford floor plan, because the only thing you're probably going to get to occur from a TikTok video is someone saying, oh, wow, this is a nice looking home. It's built by somebody who builds homes near me, and they're saying it's affordable. I'll file that away for later. Swipe up.
Agreed. Right?
Like,
if anything, I think excluding some information. So there's the term engagement bait, which is used by social networks to classify like low quality spammy posts. So we could call it like diet engagement bait, where like leaving out like just don't have any overlay, but then have in the text or the caption one of our most popular floor plans or our most popular floor plan. Even if it's not, no one really knows, it doesn't really matter. Just something about it, or like this is our least desired, whatever. Just say something, and it's kind of engagement baity. Though, like, what's the name of it?
Yeah, or if you want this, interested, comment below diet, and I'll send you the file, or I'll send you the information that you're asking for. So either way, and then we've had a lot of conversations with that with builders this past week and a half or so too. Of like, I can't stand that. This is what builders are telling me. Like, Kevin, because when I say don't necessarily, it's not helpful to put the Stanford floor plan on that video. They're like, are you just engagement baiting? Because I can't stand when people do that. It's the most annoying thing ever. I'm like, no, you can still put in the description over on the side if you want somewhere what it is. It's just the thing that you're just asking this person who doesn't have context to consume. I think one of the smartest things George Lucas did when he made the original Star Wars, and he had to go to court over this, was he didn't have the names of the actors play at the beginning of the film.
Interesting.
You don't know that Mark Hamill plays Luke Skywalker until the film's over. And he actually got sued by the Screen Actors Guild because it said, no, that's not, the rules are you have to say who's playing what role within the first minute or two of a movie. And he's like, that's going to take everyone out of context. Like, he was the original Mr. Beast of saying, I'm not putting that up there. That's going to pull people out of the experience I'm trying to create and cause this friction.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between building curiosity, like you want them to have curiosity to finish watching it, and build in that engagement baiting. I think it may be a small difference, but that really is a difference. So building that curiosity to get the full view, I think, is your TikTok goal. Because if you have other goals on TikTok, I don't know. Really, you're just confused.
we know
you're probably the wrong spot.
Yeah, your other goals on TikTok are not going to happen. Let's just as far as we've seen people get 8 million views in a month, and it's not doing what else you think it might do when that happens.
Yeah.
So then the other thing about why put Stanford in there is maybe it's the marketer saying, I just want to tell people so that way I don't have to monitor the comments and tell people. So it's like the reverse of engagement. It's like anti-engagement.
That's right.
It's like, no, don't even ask. It's here. Just so you know, which that's not necessarily a good reason.
Terrible idea. Right. It's like, let's do everything to prevent the algorithm for pushing our content further.
Not in every case. Like I know Don Dancer has this sneaky code that they put in on all of the homes under construction or finished homes that they show on their site, so that the salesperson can use that code, look up the actual floor plan. Like, it's there, but it's not there. It's just not, and it's on Instagram and Facebook, not TikTok. But then the other biggest reason when I ask people, like, why do you think a marketer would do this, is because their boss or their boss's boss or the VP of sales is like, if you don't tell people it's a Stanford, no one's going to want to buy a Stanford. And we've got a lot of Stanfords to sell. So you have to make sure everyone knows it's a Stanford, which all these marketers were all like, that's not how it works.
That's how it works. But eventually you're like, I'm not going to fight this battle. It's not worth me. Like, right. Like it's not worth my
Well, this
creating
happened
tension
in
for no reason.
2008 and 2009. Salespeople would be really, I mean, quasi annoyed anyway. They'd be like, Kevin, people keep walking in saying, I want to know about that house that's in the newspaper ad on Sunday. And if we didn't have a little like note of where it was from, the salesperson might not know, and they felt like they were uninformed, right? So this can happen of like people walking in and saying, this Instagram reel here, I want to build this house. I don't know which one that is. What do you mean you work for the company, you don't know? So that tension could be a thing, but all this is nothing really than a giant lead in into Sam's article, which is similarly controversial, titled "No One Cares About Your Community Name," which triggered a few people on social I saw, but I'm okay with it. And Sam, we're gonna interview her as well, have a little conversation about this. But the name gets your attention.
Yeah.
What else do you guys want to?
I would say I agree. No one, but also I would say I'd lean more towards, maybe I don't know the right word to use is pragmatic, but like, or also here's my bias where I'm at. You're picking the location. You more often than not, you have no choice in the builder. If they happen to be building where you want to live, you're super lucky. We're not like, we have some builders east of us over this way, but like with us, we built with KB because I had land here and cool. So it makes no difference. I think that's the same. That's what I get for the community name. Like no one really cares. It just fits the budget. It fits what they're looking for in a floor plan, and it fits the location. Cool. Are they going to pick one? Now, if it's a terrible name, like then they will care about it because they don't want to live in XYZ, whatever it is. Jeffrey Dahmer's happy place.
Gulag
like,
Estates, probably not
Gulag. Yeah, not good. With the Witch's Cauldron. You're like, what the heck?
But I think this is the key from our article is, I'll explain the exceptions to the rule. But for now, let's explore why location and pricing should take priority over the community name when it comes to advertising on Google and Meta platforms. So it's not that the name doesn't matter at all, but when you have limited space or limited attention to get the consumers, and the other thing that we don't really talk as much in the article about, but definitely we know happens. Let's say you're a master plan community. Like my favorite master plan community of all time, naming wise, is called Antiquity. I just thought like, who doesn't want to live in a master plan neighborhood called Antiquity? But if you've already explored it or think you know all the products that are offered there, you also get this kind of reverse reticular activator thing of like, I'm not even going to look at that because I've already considered Antiquity 3 months ago and it's out.
True.
And so if there's a difference, a change in product, a change in offering, a change in included features, a change in price, a change in any of those things, you got to kind of get past that. Like, I don't even want to hear what's going on in Antiquity because I already think I know. So there can be an actual negative at times, even when the name is great, to using it in an ad where you're trying to get people to take a second look. But yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Well, and I just think this is a case of marketers forgetting to step back and look at where the customer is in their journey at a specific time, like where their brain is. So, I mean, this is a Facebook ad where people are just laying on their couch, mindlessly scrolling. This is not when they're getting down into the nitty gritty of your website, trying to learn more about. So I think that's part of it, is just stepping back and trying to get in the customer's mind of where they are in the funnel, what they're actually paying attention to.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. And later on, this is my other favorite part. So when does a community name matter? The significance of a name often goes unnoticed, except for that exciting time when a buyer shares it with their friends and family. In that joyous moment, I bought a home at Happy Acres, which, by the way, there's a bounty out now. Someone's going to name a community Happy Acres, and we will come for your ribbon cutting ceremony.
Oh, for sure.
We'll pre-sell without fail that thing for you if you name your community Happy Acres. The name comes with more than just words. It's a symbol of their newfound happiness and a source of pride. So I think individual human-to-human storytelling becomes really important. But in the context of advertising on search or social, often less so.
And I think there could be your GPT example. I think if we take that and we use how GPT believes that you love waffles, which is like a sin. That's right. It's in the Old Testament somewhere, pretty sure. And if we take that thinking and then have Facebook read and index and try to understand what your copy is in your ad. I think there could be influence of having the community name I might be stretching here, have a negative impact if there is any confusion that community name happens to be the same name as a location or city. And Facebook is trying to distribute your ad to people who are most likely to new homes for sale in Tampa, Florida, from the 400s to 800s plus.
Yeah.
And all these things about Tampa. And then Facebook, like, okay, cool. We understand Tampa. That is where it is, homes, etc. They have people, I don't think people realize this. They have to train their system. So there is manual input, just like Kevin, you're working on. So how much Facebook dollars are spent on real estate? You better believe there's a whole team that are just tweaking the algorithm of how it learns real estate ads, because of how many millions and millions. So they're going to take that. And so there could be like these false positives, I guess, false positives.
Are you talking about like situations where someone might say, name their neighborhood Zephyr Hills Estates, and it's actually located in Tampa? That kind of like name?
So that's a good one. Okay. So new homes in Miami, which is South Florida. Zephyr Hills is a city 4 hours north. So there we go. So if it is Zephyr Hills Estates, but it's located in Miami, it could be like, oh, where are we at? Is it Zephyr Hills, the city, or is it in Miami? Where do we display the ads to? So that'd be an example. Like that would be a false, like, well, we should show the ads up here, but it's Miami, but they're both cities. So it's like digesting like two different cities.
Got it.
Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. So
good job, Sam. That was her first article.
That's good.
And
it's great. And this is a chunky one. Like it is like, how many words is that? Chunky might not be the best word to use for an article, but
I don't care how long or short it is, but it's the right length.
That.
I love it.
It is a full thought, complete sentence. I like it.
Next up from realestatenews.com, Texas Commission's lawsuit targets teams and associations. Okay. Ooh. First of all, the amount of people that I've interacted with since the ruling where Sitzer Burnett that came out and said, hey, you owe us $1.8 billion times 3 because it's an antitrust lawsuit from the Sherman Act. The number of people who are still like, hey, I don't really understand what's going on here. You got to start paying attention to this. And again, I know I keep talking about it, but we will have Rob Hahn back on to talk more about it. But the reason so the first lawsuit happens, there was an expectation that there would be many copycat lawsuits, which there have been. One was filed the same day by the same legal team. So we knew that would happen, and that's going to cost the used home industry a lot of time and money in attention that they have to pay to that. This is interesting for a couple of reasons, this particular lawsuit. The first is that it's not targeting giant corporations. It's targeting individual real estate teams. So in this $1.8 billion lawsuit, it was Keller Williams, Anywhere, I don't remember all the people, and the National Association of Realtors. But at no point were they saying we're trying to get money from an individual agent or a team of agents. Those people are kind of working within this conspiracy, but the conspiracy starts at the top with all these large organizations. This one is like, nope, we're going after this is the equivalence of ambulance chaser lawsuits versus like, we're going to take down big tobacco kind of, giant legal teams based out of Manhattan or wherever. So it's proliferating faster than maybe even a lot of people thought. And the other really interesting thing to me about this one is that a home builder is also one of the plaintiffs. And I've thought quietly about this. I did not want to say anything out loud to anyone for fear that I'd be in any way indicted with causing some of this to occur. I was like, again, when Rob gave his talk at the summit, someone came up and said, hey, we spent $80 million paying outside realtors next year. If this can all change and become less expensive, that's a huge deal for us. Well, the other part of that is a lot of these lawsuits go back 4 or 5 years in time. So take 80 million times 4 and be able to go back and say, we'd like half of that back in a lawsuit. Like I'm now that kind of the door has been opened, I'm waiting to see how long it takes for a top 25 builder to go at this at a different level. In particular, builders maybe who, we all know culturally there's some builders who just don't like the idea of paying realtors anything, and they have. What else you two take away from this one?
Julie,
Anything?
you want to go first?
Yeah,
You wanna
no, this
comment?
one surprised me. Like you
Same.
said, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting it to be a builder. And just the fact that it was local realtor associations and then individual teams. So you kind of expected it, but when I read this, I was like, oh, I thought builders and realtors were trying to make friends at this point.
Right.
And this felt like we took a strong turn the other way. So I was surprised by it.
Yeah.
I just want to know, maybe this is naive. Where does this money come from? Even if you win, like, let's fast forward 5 years, and every state, every major market, everything has been sued with this. That's how much. And
More money than anyone has. That's
Like,
why I think the
does it
urgency
matter?
for how many of these are happening is people are like, well, I got to get in early if I'm going to get something.
yes,
And in this case, like at the smaller level, these are different pools of people. So they're not necessarily going after NAR. They're not even named in the suit. Like
No.
NAR is going to be bankrupt is kind of I'm saying that sarcastically. I don't hope they go bankrupt, for clarity. Olivia, don't post that clip as a short.
that's it.
But NAR, we're not going to get money from them. But the Kevin Oakley team, the 4 agents who have been like the top producers in their market, they still have money. Let's go get them. And that's, again, a dangerous aspect, I think, for a lot of folks of like, oh, shoot, because there's been this idea of this isn't going to affect me, an agent, for a long, long time until this all gets settled, maybe even at the Supreme Court level. So in the meantime, it's going to be, whoops, like you personally just got sued. It's an escalation that is going to be, again, distracting.
Yeah, which it's a big deal. Like,
Let's just flash forward. I mean, and we'll talk more about this later,
Yeah.
but I really do
it's
believe
not going
that
anywhere anytime soon.
this is either going to result in, and I just saw an article from somewhere, should have grabbed the headline, estimated 500,000 realtors less by the year 2025, because buyer's agents are going to have to start either offering a menu of services that people will be able to select from or just charge by the hour. And as soon as the charge by the hour thing starts happening, consumers will change their behavior because now they're thinking about every interaction they have with their agent saying,
Oh, for sure.
this is why U-Tour, I think, is, and services like it are just going to become more and more popular. Because if I want to go see a home and I can, knowing that there's not going to be any representation there by the seller, then I feel comfortable as a consumer going there on my own just to, like, let's go see it before we have to pay $50 an hour to get Andrew to come out here with us.
Yeah.
Let's just look at it on our own.
Yeah. It seems like it will have the potential to change it quite a bit. Like, if you're buying a boat locally, like I'm down here in Florida, you could buy it from a broker or dealer. But if you're buying it privately, the smart thing to do, unless you really know boats, is if you know a boat mechanic, they come with you.
Yeah, right.
You pay them by the hour, or they have like a flat, like, hey, I'll check out the boat depending on the size,
And that's
complexity.
already happening anyway. You're going to pay a home inspector most of the time, which is different than your agent anyway.
Like, if you're interested in the home, don't even have an agent. Like, you want to check out, is this a sound home with issues to do? Which I think this is before any of this. I'm like, why don't we do that anyways? Like, when I bought our first house in 2014, I'm like, this is a person that says there's no hurricane straps on and the roof, and that our insurance will be this, and like, we're actually kind of in danger. Like, the realtor's not climbing up the attic figuring what's going on there. This is not a dig of realtors. This is just my personal thoughts on that's where the value should be. Just like if you're buying a boat, you're not talking to this person that is going to help you transact with the boat. You first will decide, is this a good boat to buy? And then you'll go through the process of protecting like the investment through the contracts and everything.
I still think this period of time is an opportunity for builders to lean into improving relationships by offering support and partnership with the top agents and teams in your marketplace.
100%.
Do whatever you can to let them know that you want to still continue working with them in whatever way that looks like. And it will probably change, quicker than people think, but I still think people are going to want representation. One article too that I read that Rob Hahn wrote. Rob, I hate using your name this much without you just being here, but it is what it is. You gotta hurry up and give me a date to get on the show. Where he makes the case that a lot of the people in the industry are saying, well, all you have to do is get better at having I'm your buyer's agent, sign this agreement with me in advance, and then you're covered. A lot of buyer's agents never ask their clients to sign an exclusive agency agreement with them. And that was always a risk. because that doesn't mean you have to get paid at all. And everyone's like, no problem. We'll just train on doing a really good job of saying, here's why you should sign this piece of paper. One of the challenges that Rob points out, though, is just because someone signs it doesn't mean that they're going to follow through on their contract. And then again, as an individual agent, are you going to go sue everyone and say, because I might have meant well, I tell Julie, hey, Julie, I'll pay you 25 grand if I buy a house. And then after I buy the house, I'll be like, hey, Julie, I got to buy a lawnmower. I forgot about that. There's all these extra fees I wasn't really expecting. Moving's more expensive. The truck is more expensive. So I'm going to pay you $12,000. And Julie would say, what would you say? I'm not going to pay you 25. I'm going to pay you 12.
Yeah. Pay me more? 1,200. 12,000.
I'm going to pay you $12,000. I'm only going to pay you 12,000
instead of 25.
We agreed to 25. I'm only going to pay you 12.
Yeah. Well, no, I would be mad, but what would I do? Go sue you over it or not, or just take it?
Yeah. Do they allow like a lien be placed on the home? I wonder. You
could do a whole lot of things, but here's the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think realtors like to portray themselves. That's not even the right way to say it. A lot of realtors are like Spider-Man. Like, I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I'm just here. Like, I coach your kid's soccer team and we're all friends here. And, I'm just here to help people. So then you start suing people, like that reputation is going to change real fast.
Yeah.
And especially if you have to sue someone who's a first-time owner and can't really afford it. They're already like barely getting into a house, or they're a minority, protected class. It's like, you don't want to be known as a person who's chasing people to get money.
Yeah.
And so all of this inevitably just leads towards being paid by the hour.
Yeah.
As the majority of what people will do. And the good buyer's agents will probably like that better and probably make more money.
Yeah.
Because whether the buyer ever ends up actually buying or not, they're going to get paid by the hour for their services.
It's so complicated, because what if you don't end up being able to purchase the home that you just paid Julie to show you?
Yeah, I just paid her $50. I mean,
the offer wasn't accepted, and you're like, well, Julie, you're not helpful. I paid you $2,000 to meet me here, and you spent 6 hours, and that fit the rate, and I didn't even get the home. What in the world? I'm not paying you.
Which I think people are going to say that will lead to the free marketplace coming up with more transparent ways of this whole thing happening. Like, why didn't I get the home?
Yeah.
I know we picked another offer. Sorry.
Okay.
That's going to be harder to swallow if to your point, you just paid $5 an hour for an expert to help you.
Yeah. Lose out on 5 homes. There goes my down payment. Shoot. Good.
Yeah. In fact, I just talked to someone who I'll never name. Even if you put me on the stake, they said they just helped a friend of theirs put an offer, like a family member, put an offer on a house that was in a multiple offer situation. And the words that were said were, well, luckily, I happen to know the listing agent. He's, they're a friend of mine. So I just talked to them and figured out like, what's it going to take for us to probably win this? And then we won. I'm like, that seems wrong.
That seems like that happens
all
the time.
Other people who put in an offer who didn't have that unique relationship. And you could also say that's just what, working with a professional does. But
it could. That sounds.
It's not a free and transparent marketplace is all I'm saying.
Definitely not.
All right. Cool. Next up from Yahoo Finance, housing market affordability is so bad that Zillow says it will take you 13 and a half years to break even on a purchase from July onward. Today's housing market is the least affordable and least accessible it's been in decades, as mortgage rates reached 8% this fall and home prices continue to rise. So just how bad is it? Zillow crunched numbers and says it will take you a remarkably long time to break even. So first of all, what do I mean by break even in this article? What's that defined by?
Let me see if they do they define it. I mean, I have my brain, what that would be, what I assume that it means.
I mean, it just says before they break even on their investment, which I take to mean like if rates go down, yeah, I mean,
that's vague. I take it as you buy the home today for $500K.
Could you turn around and sell it?
Can you sell it and be at zero? Because if you buy it today, the closing costs, all those things, and you sell it tomorrow, you'll lose XYZ. So at what point do you break even to leave the home?
They included the mortgage rate, the down payment amount, the closing costs, insurance, property taxes, and then the annual appreciation rate. That's what all they included.
Huh. Can you count property taxes? I don't know. Well, that's why
but the main
are
factors there are you're buying when prices are still going up. So there hasn't been a price correction in the area in a long time, and then rates being high.
Yep.
I mean, and I get the point they're making about affordability, but also you have to take into account people have to live somewhere. Like you got to let, whether it's an investment or not an investment, like it's still more, you're still going to come out ahead from renting. So like, is the other option like living with your parents still, or what? Like, or maybe for first time buyers, I guess maybe staying in your home would be the difference. But I think this is taking into account that your only goal is to make an investment when you're buying a house.
Yeah.
But I would say that's only a part of buying a house. It's also somewhere to live and make your home. And, it just depends how you're looking at it.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Julie, because what is the break-even point of renting? That's sarcasm, ChatGPT. That's sarcasm. Like, I don't think people realize, like, you sign a lease for 12 months.
Right.
At $2,000, you just signed a $24,000 liability. Even that's just like, oh, it's my lease. That's what it is. So you lost $24K, like no matter what. So your break even point is when you then get $24,000 back, sort of. There's really no break. You can't have a break even point with renting, but you put $24K into a home as a down payment. Okay, it would have been $24K complete loss. So I think that's the better comparison because you have to rent or buy. There's no other choice, or live with mom and dad. I asked my parents if we could move in with them. I'm just kidding. This is again sarcasm. No, they said no. I was like, oh shoot, you don't want 2 dogs, 3 kids, us too.
I think this ties in with our last article from CNBC. To buy a house in today's market, more people are turning to an alternative lender, their parents.
The boomer bank.
I do think this is interesting to the extent that this is happening or you're experiencing this at your home building organization. Do you have content that speaks to this group of people who are not just trusted advisors, but the main source of funds for the investment? Yeah. Because those people might care more about a break-even concept than like, hey, I want my kid to live everywhere. And like, I want them to have a house and a roof over their head, but also at some point I might need to get this money back. And so they're looking at it differently than anyone would as their primary residence.
Yeah. I think they put 40%. What's the number? 40% are utilizing parent money. Nearly 40% of recent buyers under the age of 30 used either a cash gift from a family member or an inheritance to afford their down payment. And I would assume the cash gift could be financed from equity that their parents have in their home. Like they bought their home in 2018 for $500K, now it's worth $800. They don't want to do anything with it. They're like, cool, I'll help my kiddos out and I could pull out $100K and here's 50 to this one, 50 to that one, and they could buy a home versus spending $50,000 on their lease, on their rent. So it's kind of, they're helping their kids out when the money's kind of, they're just sitting. So there's a investment return there.
Yeah, this 40%. Was a different market, but like 3-4 years ago, I was the backup OSC for Ideal Homes. And I was shocked how many like I would talk to people and I would figure out that they were the parent of the person actually buying the house.
That's funny.
And I thought it was odd at the time, but now I think we're going to see more and more of this because if they are contributing money to it or a down payment, I think there's going to be more people involved in the decision. So that's going to be different from the marketing perspective. That's going to be different for when you're the OSC talking to somebody, when you're sales, like who all's opinion matters in this decision. So yeah, I definitely think we're going to see more of it.
Yeah. I remember one of the earliest sales scripts ever was, we need to figure out who all is going to be part of this contract. And that's a question that I feel like we haven't asked that in forever, or I haven't heard people talk about that in forever of like, I need to understand who all is going to be living here and who all is going to be on the contract. It's kind of been more of a given, like there's going to be one family per one house, except for in certain parts of the country or certain product types.
That's one thing in this article that I think it'd be interesting to get the data on this. It says it's like in the bullet points at the top, key points for this article. However, there are other options for would-be buyers who are struggling to come up with a 20% down payment. Like, where did that 20% come from? I know it is to do with PMI, private mortgage insurance. Mm-hmm. For people with even moderate credit, like PMI is not, to me, my brain, why are people so worried about that? I don't understand. The 20% is making you sign the $24,000 liability of yet another year of renting to save 50, 80, $100 a month in PMI. Like that 20% number. It'd be interesting if like a big builder, a builder with enough that would have enough data, like what percent do you need to buy it as a down payment for a home? 5, 10, 15, 20. And you're like 50% of people think you need 20%. Oh my goodness. Like here's this whole 50% of the market thinks they'll never have enough money. 20% of 500,000, it's 100 grand to come up with, versus 5% is certainly a lot more manageable. So that needs to go away. That needs to, I guess that's the point I'm making. I'm like, can I go away somewhere? Like
well,
just
it's
not
kind of
have
a
people talk
similar
about
argument of like why one of the things people don't like about real estate commissions is it's a percentage of the sales price. And percentages, to your point, as house prices continue to escalate and go ever higher, that 20% becomes a higher hurdle. Even and to your point, is the hurdle even real or necessary? Right. And yeah, everyone's situation is going to be different, but I think it's a great point. All right, what do we love? What do we hate? Everyone, Julie, I see you've got something here for yourself.
My favorite thing right now, do y'all follow the Marketing Millennials Instagram page?
I think I followed it because of you. So I'm following it now because of Julie.
But yeah, it's Instagram, the Marketing Millennials, and it makes me laugh. It's just memes and silly stuff.
All these
and
builder
goofy.
People following it.
Yeah. So
I think I've seen their content on LinkedIn, actually, not on Instagram before. I have seen it on LinkedIn.
If you just like a ridiculous account to follow, the Marketing Millennials is a good one. Am I a millennial? I don't know. I'm an elder millennial, I think.
I'm an elder.
I almost sent this one. You're watching one right now with Taylor Swift. Yeah, and I was going to send it to our designer because she loves Taylor Swift.
You know,
I have
that's
an
one thing I
embarrassing
don't
Taylor
like.
Swift confession.
Oh no, this is my.
It was Sunday night, and I work with freshman boys at church on Sunday nights, but there's this big group contest where they would have you like random facts or like actions, and you just have to do it the fastest. And I made it to the final 4 out of like these 200 high school kids and leaders. And the final thing was name a Taylor Swift song.
There's like 400 of them.
I couldn't do it.
Oh my
even
goodness.
Worse. What I said was 1973. Which is, to be clear, it's one of my favorite songs of all time. There's a song called 1973. It's just got a great rhythm to it. I forget the name. I forget the artist, but it's 1978 is the album, right? Is there an actual song 1978 or is that just the album?
89.
No, 89.
80. I don't. Anyway.
Yeah.
I got booed.
1989. It's a 5th studio album.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I don't know
Kevin.
a single. Taylor who?
Taylor who? Here's my favorite thing. I love doing the podcast, but I have to hop off because I have to actually talk with some builders right now in like 25 seconds.
All right.
So there we go. We do marketing here at Convert and online sales and
that's
everything
right.
in between.
We'll close it out.
So I'll see out real quick. See y'all.
Bye.
Favorite thing. My favorite, I don't know if I talked about this, but my favorite thing has been going through my old baseball card collection with my boys. Have I talked about this?
Fun. I don't remember.
So I have, well, here it is. Have this plastic bin the size of a shoebox, and I've almost thrown it away like 8 times as we've moved. And I pulled it out of a closet, and my son was like, they're collecting Pokemon cards, and they're like, "Dad, what is this? Like sports?" And of course, like the only sports they've seen of cards are or football. Apparently, that's all the kids today really collect are football cards. Wow. I'm like, well, let's just look. So I opened up my laptop and I put up eBay just to let them look up the cards. Mm-hmm. First of all, eBay apparently is nothing but a total scam these days. Like the whole thing is a scam. I'll explain more. But like I had this Deion Sanders card. You look it up and my son just starts screaming. He's like, "Dad, this card is $160. And then he looks up Ricky Henderson, $940. And they start tearing off the protective cases from their Pokemon and putting my random cards that they found into these protective cases. And they're like, "Dad, we got to get this on eBay." I'm like, "You guys can have a large percentage of whatever you want to do, but I'm not getting involved here." But apparently marketers have gotten into eBay and they find these cards and they're like, this is a super rare Deion Sanders card that's not rare at all. It's like it's currently selling for anywhere from a penny to $160.
Mm.
But watching them for 2 hours straight, just screaming and getting ever more excited. And they're like, Dad, you're the dumbest person alive. You've got all this money just sitting here. And then we listed 4 of them and none of them sold for even a penny.
Oh no.
But it was just like, I don't care. It was just like watching kids mine for gold, you know, in those little pans.
Mm-hmm.
And they just were sure they were about to retire. It was a blast. So
That
get
is
out your
fun.
old. And they also got out Connect 4 yesterday. Kids are just hilarious. You know, like all we want is electronic gifts and video games. And then they find an actual old Connect 4 set and they've done nothing but play Connect 4 for like the last 48 hours. It's bizarre.
Oh, fun. I want to play some Connect 4.
All right. Well, Julie, I don't know what happened to your.
I don't know.
Andrew's got to go to work. Julie's camera's shutting down. I guess the podcast's over.
I guess so.
That'll do it for this week. We'll see you next time.
Bye.